If you assumed that your deaf friend's shaking bed is an earthquake, you might have effed up. We'll get into that story in just a bit, but first, today I effed up by realizing my chronic medical issue was my fault, and a pedicure helped me solve it. I've suffered from canker sores most of my life, white, painful mouth sores, sometimes multiple at once. Sometimes they'd be in the back of my throat or on my uvula, which was especially painful and made swallowing and breathing awful. I would have at least one a month, sometimes more. It was rare for me to have zero. I saw so many doctors about this. Canker sores are, unfortunately, caused by a wide array of things, and it's different for each person, not super well understood by the medical community. Too much citrus? I had an addiction to orange soda, so that checks out. Too much stress? I raised my siblings while my parents were never home, so that checks out too. My favorite medical interaction was an 80-plus-year-old doctor I met at my college who said, in his younger years, he tried to learn more about them. So he just started prescribing random things to people to see what actually helped. Steroids had the highest success rate at treating them, so he gave me a prescription and sent me on my way. It worked like a charm. Less than 2 days and they were gone. And he had specifically prescribed me extra for the next time I had them really bad. He was my favorite. So I graduate college, move in with my significant other, and the sores start to slowly decrease. I rack my brain trying to figure it out and just resign myself to it having always been stress-caused. Well, at one point, my partner catches me chewing my toenails. I'm very flexible and have a lot of nervous habits. Fingernails chewing is one, but toenail chewing is another. They express their disgust, but it's not a deal breaker and we move on. I do it less because I try to hide it. But eventually, we start getting pedicures together, partially for fun, partially as a way to get me to stop. I won't chew my pretty gel-painted toenails. And then, the canker sores stop completely, and they don't return. But I have to know, what was really the cause? In between pedicures, I go back to chewing my toenails, for science. Sure enough, I get a canker sore days later. So I've since stopped entirely, but I so desperately want to tell other people plagued by this chronic issue that it might just be their fault and caused by something they'd never volunteer to a doctor or connect on their own. Yeah, so the human mouth is disgusting. I remember back in high school for a science experiment, we had to swab like 5 different random things around the school and then compare the bacteria in those things to what was in our mouths. And I mean, like, we're literally going around like swabbing crap in toilets and the bottom of people's shoes. The human mouth contained almost 10 times the amount of bacteria as like a piece of fermented poop sitting in the toilet, so this totally checks out. PME Dim Please commented, "The way I just started cackling at the absurdity of the twist. Like, what? Gee, I wonder what it is I do that causes these sores. Let me get back to slurping on these feet phalanges." Also, hi, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these Today I Effed Up videos, it would be so awesome if you left a like or commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. That being said, our next story is, Today I Effed Up by forgetting that Reddit is only as anonymous as you make it, and blowing up my relationship with my family over it. Obligatory, this isn't technically today. Really, this is more like I've been kinda dumb for like 10 years, but hey, buckle in, it's a long one. My childhood was exceptionally isolated. When I was about 5 years old, we moved to the top of a mountain in the middle of the desert, ostensibly because my parents wanted their eventual 11 children to grow up free and wild, but also because extremely traditional Catholicism tends to stick for children when those children have absolutely no contact with reality. We would descend the mountain for church on Sundays, and then once a month we would join other Catholic homeschoolers for a morning at a local park. And some years we did 4-H, but that was about the extent of my socialization. I was unhappy, but I was never quite sure why, and my parents were always very quick to explain that my unhappiness was a result of the devil or spiritual attack. Enter the internet. The glorious, populated, community-filled internet. As an older teen, I began doing some classes online, and I got an ancient brick of a laptop to help with that. And naturally, I eventually found Reddit. Finally, I had found a place where I could have community with other people. And nobody would ever have to know I was an awkward homeschooler with a terrible long skirt and an awful haircut. I started in the Catholicism subreddit, intended to keep it open in one page in case my parents walked in, but then in another page I could explore. And oh, the freedom of exploration. I learned history and science. I joined fandoms and discovered podcasters. I learned interesting terms like bisexual and even saw pornography for the first time. And I talked to other people. People who weren't homeschooled or sheltered or even Catholic. Not going to lie, I said some bullcrap. For the first solid, 6 years that I was here, I was drinking that Catholic Kool-Aid hard. If you look far enough back in my history, you'll find a homophobic, transphobic, religious bigot. Honestly, hella cringe. I also had a habit of occasionally complaining about the things my family did, especially as I began to realize just how desperately abnormal and unhealthy my childhood was. Word to the wise, kids, don't post your family drama on your main. It will eventually come back to bite you in the butt. Eventually, with time and love and joining the real world, I grew out of the cringe. I left the Catholic Church once I finally realized the depths of its misogyny, racism, and corruption. I realized that the fun word bisexual described me, and started meeting with other queer people, and found out that they were not depraved predators, but honestly the warmest and most lovely bunch of people I'd met. I learned the real truth behind all the pro-life things I had been taught. I read books about abortion and trans rights. I connected with people in my town and then started doing IRL things once COVID ended, and now I volunteer at my library every week. I realized that I'm not broken and disgusting, waiting to be saved by an angry God. I made real friends and really learned to love myself for the first time. But you've been waiting for the freak up. I made a catastrophic mistake of posting a picture of my sister's wedding on Reddit. You'd think that was nothing. I thought that was nothing. But my sister's ex, who's been involved in a decade-long custody battle with her, did not think it was nothing. In fact, he somehow managed to find the post and then from there find my Reddit account. And boom, 10 years of content. Homeboy must have read through thousands of posts and comments, and he found the ones where I complain about my childhood, commiserate with people about how my family is still conservative when I've gone to the liberal dark side, weird poems about fights with my sister that I wrote at 18. He went through posts about my struggles with fertility and struggles with religion, and he entered screenshots of them into evidence as proof that my family was not fit to be around a kid. By the time I had been told what had happened, told to delete posts, it was too late. My dad had the screenshots and then he went and found more. My whole family saw them. My grandparents called and texted in horror. My aunt across the country was dragged into it. The next thing I knew, I had text after text from my sister telling me that I needed to make a statement that I was a psychotic lunatic, lying about all of it. My mother apparently wrote a statement for me that said as much, according to another sibling that saw it before she tried to make me sign it. My sister claimed that wouldn't get custody of her kid back if I didn't either claim psychosis or sign a statement to that effect. Because that's perjury though, I did not. Because see, I'm not a lunatic. I'm an idiot who overshares on Reddit. Who isn't? And I've been diagnosed with depression. Who hasn't? But psychotic? No. I wrote my own statement, basically laying out all of what I just said. I was a sheltered kid who used the internet badly, and some of what I had said online has been said without the full knowledge of their respective situations, but my mistakes were my own. And because my sister had been adamant that I needed to call myself psychotic, and my mother had already written something for me, I thought it best to send to my sister's lawyer directly, so that nothing could be added or amended without my knowledge. This was apparently a big mistake. I woke up to an email from my sister about how she can't believe I would imply I don't trust her. Would you? And how I'm going to die alone without any friends or family. She's going to paint me in court as a psycho anyway, because only a crazy person would, checks notes, talk to a lawyer in a legal situation instead of the person who already seems to have made plans to have you perjure yourself. My whole family basically hates me, and that's the end of that. All in all, you might agree, no great loss. And it's not. No, friends, the loss is this Reddit account. 10 years of karma. 10 years of relationships and carefully curated content. I shall have to start again with a new account, hopefully much more anonymous this time around. I'm torn between never touching this account again and using it as my new account exclusively for writing subreddit erotica content. Since now I know my father will be looking on at all of my posts in disapproval anyway, might as well lean into it. I'd say I'll catch you all on the flip side, but I really hope I'm not caught anywhere. I'm so ready to go back being just another anonymous face in the Reddit crowd, and this time I plan to stay that way. Well, OP, I am glad that you were able to discover your true self and your true identity, and also I don't understand why people feel the need to scrub social media. Like, why are we going back 10, 15 years into someone's post history and assuming that they're the same person now that they are back then? I've never understood people's fascination with doing that. Sweet Lady H commented, "Oof, my heart hurts reading this. OP, I grew up in a very religious household. My parents ended up in not one, but 2 cults. They pulled me out of school when they found out my friend that had been staying with us was actually my girlfriend. I've also dealt with the whole family situation of 1, putting dumb crap on the internet and then it getting found and sent to my family, and 2, being thrown into the middle of a custody battle with my bio mom, her new husband, then, and his kids, and basically told to write a letter lying about how she was a great person and everyone else was persecuting her. Now, in my late 30s, I still struggle with family dynamics, but have, through the help of a crap ton of therapy, started to learn to love myself, how to be the authentic me, and freak everyone else that wants to act like that's a bad person. At the end of the day, while you did F up a little, several other people in this story F up a heck of a lot more. Give yourself some grace, keep your head high, and move forward. If you ever need a random internet stranger to talk to, you can reach out to me. Take care of yourself, OP. You're the only you this world has got." Our next story is, "Today I effed up by making my coworkers think I was eating my deceased cat." A bit of backstory. I've been living in an English-speaking country since I was 10. My accent is 95% gone, and people who meet me generally don't realize I'm not a native speaker, but once in a while I'll mispronounce something or use a word wrong. On to the F-up. My cat died yesterday. She was my baby and I miss her very much, and I can barely function without randomly bursting into tears. I took off work yesterday so I could grieve and bury her in my yard under the bench we used to sit on and watch the birds in the summers. I thought she'd like that. My sister stopped to console me and brought me a homemade meal. Despite it being delicious, I could barely eat and saved it for later. Today I had to go to work, so I packed the rest of the dinner for lunch. When I came in, my eyes were puffy from crying and people were asking me what happened, and I explained about my cat. During lunch, I was heating up my food, and a woman I work with asked me what I was having, and I responded with the remains from yesterday. She looked disgusted, but I thought, whatever, maybe she doesn't like to eat food from a previous day. A few hours later, I got called into HR and was told my colleagues would prefer I didn't eat house pets in the shared dining space. What? I was so confused, then appalled. Why would anyone think that? I was going back to all the conversations I had that day, and at no point did I say anything about eating pets. HR lady let me go, but then, a few hours later, called both me and the woman who watched me heat up my luncheon. That's when it came out that I was heating up remains when I meant leftovers, and my coworker assumed that meant I cooked my cat and was eating it due to some mental breakdown I was having. F my life. I do know what both words mean and that they're not interchangeable. I just wasn't thinking clearly. Despite my explanation, people are still giving me looks. I mean, I understand how the words can get misconstrued, but why would you think that? And then why would you run to HR and say something like that? You're just making an issue out of nothing. So OP's already kind of grieving over the loss of the cat, and, this is not helping, even if it was an honest mistake. The other one commented, "They're eating the dogs! They're eating the cats! I'm sorry your coworkers are that dense. Also, sorry you lost your companion." Elegant Echoes responded, "I have a sweet coworker, very, very old. Kind-hearted. I told her I found some really good traditional, probably not, Chinese food that didn't take too long to make. She very politely and gently voiced some concern about eating traditional Chinese food because of their consumption of dogs. I couldn't be mad at her. She was trying to be considerate, but not realizing she's contributing to stereotyping. She's like 85 and not a consciously racist bone in her body. Also, in my workplace, so freaking much racism against Hispanics. I even see managers partake in making comments." Our next story is, "Today I effed up by misreading a recipe." So this happened several years ago, but it's one I love to share and thought it'd make at least a few people laugh. I was in my early 20s, and my family had only recently discovered cooking shows. Food Network, Gordon Ramsay, Iron Chef, etc. We were inspired to expand our cooking abilities beyond the handful of recipes we'd all stuck up until that point. This particular day, I decided I wanted to try making my own fried rice. I'd like to apologize in advance to Uncle Roger if he ever sees this. The recipe I decided to use was supposed to be pretty simple, but I somehow managed to misread the first vital ingredient. It called for 8 cups cooked rice. Somehow my brain translated that as cook 8 cups of rice. I had never cooked rice from scratch before. The best I'd ever done was minutes instant rice, which doesn't expand much. I was not prepared for the horror about to happen. I started off in one of the smaller pots, like I would for instant rice, but before too long, the rice was about to overflow, so we poured it into a bigger pot and added more water. Then it happened again, and again. Before we knew it, we had poured this nightmare of a cooking fail into our largest stock pot, still trying to rescue this. We abhor food waste, and we're desperately trying to avoid having to throw away so much food. But that's not where the freak up truly ends, because we were trying so hard to rescue this rice, we just kept stirring. By the end, it was like trying to stir half-dried concrete. At one point, I pulled back on the spoon and felt a loud pop in my wrist. I stopped stirring instantly, got some rice on it, and had to stand off to the side as my parents finally decided there was absolutely no way to rescue this disaster and dump the pot out. I wasn't able to get to the doctor immediately. If you live in the US, you'll understand. So we weren't 100% sure what happened to my wrist. Mom is a nurse, so we tried treating it as best we could, and I wore an off-the-shelf wrist brace for a while. I was finally able to get to the doctor and discovered that I'd sprained my wrist, stirring rice. By the time I was able to get into physical therapy, my injured hand measured at half the strength of my uninjured hand, which is bad enough, but it was my dominant hand, so I was severely limited in everything. It took a while, but I got the strength and dexterity in my hand up to equal the other one. My wrist still pops on occasion when I rotate it in just the right/wrong way, and hurts if I sleep on it at a bad angle. All because I couldn't cook rice. And no, I've never tried to cook rice from scratch again. So you could kind of see this coming. Anyone that's cooked rice before or familiar with the process could have predicted this disaster, but the ensuing injuries, that's rough. That's absolutely brutal. You got to come up with a better cover story as to why you've got a sprained wrist than, I can't stir rice. Defensive Lettuce commented, "It sounds more like you tore a ligament in your wrist or hand. The initial pop and the occasional pops or clicks and discomfort remaining could be clues. Did they give you an MRI? Depending on which one, there's a lot of ligaments in the hand, and most of them are very small. There's probably nothing that can be done to repair the ligament, but when it gets irritated, immobilizing it with a brace for a few days and using ice to reduce the inflammation should be helpful. I have a torn ligament in one of my wrists, and because of how small it is, it can't be repaired. But I was told by a specialist that if the area ever develops arthritis or leads to chronic pain in the joint when I'm older, I can have a surgery done to fuse the bones together to eliminate the pain from the friction between the bones. However, it will decrease wrist mobility, so it's not an ideal first option in the absence of constant pain. Our next story is, today I effed up by accidentally confessing to the wrong person. So this happened today, and I want to disappear. I've had a crush on this girl for months. We text a lot, joke around, and sometimes she might flirt back, but I've never been sure. After overthinking for weeks, I finally decided to confess. I typed a heartfelt message, something like, "I don't know when it happened, but you've become really special to me. I like you a lot, and even if you don't feel the same, I just wanted you to know." I stared at my phone for 10 minutes, hesitated, and finally sent it. Then I threw my phone across the bed like it was cursed. A minute later, my phone buzzed. I grabbed it, full of nerves, and then I saw it. I sent it to the wrong person. Not my crush. Nope, I sent it to my friend. My male friend. The one who knows all my dumbest moments. The one who's seen me fail at life in real time. And his response? "Bro, same." What does that even mean? Now I'm just lying here questioning all my life choices. Send help. I mean, you just need to write him back and say that it was a mistake and that it was meant for the girl that you're crushing hard on, and hopefully your friend already realized this and just sent you back a joking response. If not, if your friend is serious, I have absolutely no advice on how to handle that. Hopefully Reddit hooked you up. H. Dave commented, "Okay, tell him he's special to you, but you want to send that to someone else. A true bro will understand." Our next story is, Today, I effed up by passing gas at my desk on Valentine's Day. This morning started off lovely. Me and my boyfriend had coffee together with some V-Day fun. After he left, my stomach felt off, but I figured it was just my stomach settling from the excitement of being with him. Driving to work, my stomach gets progressively more unsettled. It feels like my gut is bubbling and moving fast. I get to the office before any of my coworkers and start to settle into my desk. I start typing my first email and I pass a little gas, but one felt warmer than the others, and I instantly get scared that it might have been more than gas. As soon as I start to stand up, my coworker walks in and says, "Wow, smells like a Barnes & Noble in here." I'm both mortified but also dying laughing on the inside. I say, "Really? It smells like books or something?" And he says, "Yeah, books and coffee. It's a great smell." I laugh a little and say, "Yeah, those are great smells." I make my way to the bathroom and confirm my horror that I did in fact pass more than just gas. I find an excuse to leave the office and run to the nearest Target to get new underwear. But all day, all I can think about is how my coworker thought my chocolate surprise smelled like Barnes & Noble's bookstore. You know, this post is dripping with sarcasm. I think he probably knew that OP'd done it, but just did not want to embarrass or humiliate them. So the Barnes & Noble reference, I think, was code for, yeah, you need to go change your shorts. "Read it," man commented. "Wow, smells like a Barnes & Noble in here." "Oh, does it, Greg? Does it smell like books and a little freshly brewed coffee?" Well, guess what? I just crapped myself. Are you happy now, Greg? You really pried it out of me, huh? God, I'm so sick of you. Always coming in here sniffing about, saying what things smell like, and you're so bad at it. Barnes & Noble? What? It's crap, Greg. That's what you're smelling. Our next story is, today I effed up by showing up to an interview improperly dressed. I had to quit my job at Dollar General a while before the holidays. My last freshman college semester had just ended, so I was looking for a little downtime from everything. Since January, now I've been looking for different jobs and all have turned me down, leaving me feeling somewhat defeated. I finally built up the nerve to apply for a McDonald's, a job I had previously worked and swore never to go back to, and had an interview for that application today. I walk up there because it's not too far, downplaying the fact that I was dressed casually when I applied before. No such thing was mentioned as it's a McDonald's, so I finally get up there and am informed that I'll need to reschedule because of this. I fought back tears most of the walk home and absolutely broke down when I got home. I feel so stupid, and now I don't know if I've just thrown my chances or not. Okay, I don't want to make light of anyone that works at McDonald's, right? Everybody needs a job, and that is a very suitable job for anybody, but if they have the nerve to slap a dress code on the interviewing process, that's probably not a McDonald's you want to work at. There's no way that that's corporate policy. Just that particular McDonald's. So if anything, I'd say you dodged a bullet. Our next story is, today I effed up breaking into my own house early in the morning to store a bunch of cash. I stayed out of state for a month, working for a guy for cash. When I was done and finally made the long drive home, I got back at 3 a.m. I had been up for roughly 30 hours and I immediately went to bed. A couple of hours later, I get a call from the guy that sent me for the work. He had already had my hours tracked and agreed to on my drive home. But he called early, ready to give me money. I thought I was dreaming, cause dude, I just got back? But no, he was like, "No, I'm paying you." I wasn't going to argue, so I got dressed and went downstairs to invite him in quick. Well, he was in his vehicle, so I was like, man, I gotta go out in the snow. So I put on some light shoes and went outside and shut the door behind me, immediately realizing I didn't twist the handle all the way when I opened my door. It won't unlock the handle's lock if you don't fully twist it. Well, now he gets out and we meet halfway between my locked door and his vehicle, and he hands me the type of amount of money that won't let you go back to sleep if you're tired, you know? But I'm locked out and too embarrassed to say anything about it. So I'm in the snow, trying to mess with my front door with my phone's flashlight and my old hotel room key in the dark with what I'm hoping to use as a down payment for a house, just sitting in my pocket. Well, the police showed up after 15 minutes. It was easy to prove I lived there, and the one, definitely cooler, cop was laughing and said he never found someone breaking into a house with a large amount of money. They helped me get in through my sliding glass door, which reminded me to immediately deposit the cash when my bank opened, because holy crap, it was easy for them to open that. I don't know which neighbor called the police on me, but they meant well, and I know that, and appreciate them. Look, everybody has weird moments like this, nothing to be ashamed of, but like you said, at least you're now privy and savvy to the fact that you need to deposit that money ASAP. Flat Noise 1899 commented, I had to pull the screen off one of our front windows, fight with the window to open it, climb inside without hurting myself to grab the keys, open the front door, go back inside, get back in my vehicle, and drive off, all while a cop sat in front of my house watching me. He saw me come out, he saw me looking for something, he saw me fighting my way to get back into the house and never offered help or asked what I was doing. It was hilarious after the fact, but I was a little ticked he didn't offer help when I saw him watching me struggle. Our next story is, today I effed up by thinking my deaf friend's shaking bed was an earthquake. So I used to date this girl a while back. We'll call her Jess. Jess has Treacher-Collins syndrome. She's nearly deaf and wears hearing aids, and has had over 12 surgeries on her face. Jess and I dated for a year and then broke up, as we were just better off as friends. I remember when we were dating and we'd start to argue, she'd take her hearing aids off and turn away from me. This used to pee me off so bad, but now it's just funny. Anyways, we definitely operate better as friends. In the past, we'd always sleep at my house, and the other day we decided to have a sleepover at hers for the first time, and I was super excited. Everything goes super great and it's fun, and then we decide it's time for bed. Jess obviously takes off her hearing aids when she sleeps. She's got screws in her head and her hearing aids just click into place, so there's no talking to her after that point. Sometime after 5 a.m., I wake up to violent shaking. I'm talking like the bed is rocking back and forth, jumping up and down and vibrating. My first thought is, oh my god, an earthquake, even though we live in Colorado. Now, I have no idea what to do in an earthquake, but I figured we needed to get under a table or something. Jess is sleeping peacefully through all this. I turn on the lights and frantically shake her awake, then scream at her we need to take cover. I jump off the bed and onto the floor and nothing is happening. Jess is staring at me, absolutely bewildered. She clicks her hearing aids into place and asks me what the heck is wrong with me. I have no idea how to explain myself at this point, so I motion to her bed, which is still shaking. She laughs and tells me, since she's deaf, her bed is her alarm clock. Her dad installed something somewhere that makes it shake. We had a good laugh about it and went back to sleep afterwards. I'll never forget that level of panic though. I almost crapped my pants in her bed. So I will say, brilliant idea by dad, first of all, but secondly, you have nothing to be ashamed of, OP. Like, if it really was an earthquake, you'd want to get Jess awake and, to a safe location ASAP. So you reacted like most people would in that situation, and so I don't think you did anything wrong. I don't think that that's an F up. Seeking Valimar 1309 commented, so I have a funny story. I'm also deaf, hard of hearing, and I sleep on my one good ear. Luckily, I can still be woken up by a normal alarm clock. My college roommate, however, who was completely hearing, was such a deep sleeper that he actually had a deaf alarm clock for himself so he could wake up in time for class. It still didn't work. So I, the deaf kid, after getting woken up by his bed making the whole apartment shake, had to walk into his room across the hall and physically slap him awake so I could go back to sleep. By the way, what kind of hearing aids does your friend have? From the description, it sounds like a Baha, bone-anchored hearing aid, which is what I have. A Practical Joker responded, that's too good, and yes, hers are bone-anchored as well. It's super cool because she can connect Bluetooth and play music straight into her head. Our next story is, today I effed up by pushing my little brother. So I'm a 17-year-old and I have a 7-year-old brother. Some things for context. I'm pretty skinny and I do not consider myself strong in any way, shape, or form. My brother is a normal 7-year-old kid. Today after lunch, I went to get something from the pantry when my little brother started picking a fight with me, some punches and other stuff. So I wanted to move him aside since he was bothering me, but I miscalculated my force and I pushed him to the ground and he hit his head. I know what I did could have killed him, and trust me, I feel really guilty. What shocked me and my mother was the way my father handled the situation. He decided to beat me up, not with slaps or maybe even punches, maybe the belt, that would have been normal and I would have accepted it. No, he pummeled me to the ground first by punching me to the face, and he hit me with his knee in the stomach like 5 or 6 times, and now I feel really sick. My father is a 185 centimeter, 100 kilogram firefighter. So Reddit, did my father overreact? Was he right? What can I do to fix this? Update 1. I'll be trying to address all of your concerns. I do not have many people to talk to since my grandparents died. All my uncles and aunts are worthless jerks, my father's side. On my mother's side, though, there's my uncle, and I've talked to him, and he basically said that he will get better, and if things get worse, he will help. On the medical side, I've been feeling sick, but no blood or nothing. I'm feeling sick now because I'm a very anxious person, and this event stressed me out a lot, not counting the beating. Somebody suggested talking to the teachers, but I do not know them very well. I do not think I'll ask them for help. Many of you suggested to go to the hospital, but I'm feeling a bit better. Took some medicine, and I think it will go away in a few days, I hope. Inside the house, there's always screaming, and my father is repeating the same crap over and over again, saying that my mother is an incapable woman, jobless, useless, that he will unalive me next time, that me and my mother should leave, etc. So very clearly, if all these things are true, you're in a extremely abusive situation. Did your father overreact? Yeah, he absolutely did. Now, I don't agree with the advice of, slitting his throat in his sleep and all this other kind of stuff, but when you come of age, you probably just need to distance yourself as quickly and assiduously as you can. Fayan Run commented, "Something stands out about this story. Your brother is punching you. You respond by shoving him hard enough to slam his head into the ground. Your father responds by beating the crap out of you. It sounds like everyone in this house has accepted violence as a normal way to interact with each other. Is this the only time you all have been violent towards each other, or has this happened before?" Our next story is, "Today I effed up. I said congratulations instead of condolences to a coworker whose nephew died. It was 9 a.m. and I just parked my car and walked into work. My coworker, let's call her Annie, told me that another coworker, Ryan, is on leave today because his nephew passed away suddenly in a car crash. Me, being definitely undiagnosed and untreated with probably some form of DSM-5 social disability issues, that isn't crippling enough and allows normalcy functioning in society, accidentally called Ryan and said, 'Congratulations, I heard everything from Annie. I hope you have a good time.' My socially awkward butt realized 30 minutes later, while taking my morning free work coffee, that after leaving that voicemail, I really said congratulations to him during Ryan's morning period. I'm so thankful I second-guessed myself and was able to resend another message explaining that I really said the wrong word because I mixed up condolences with congratulations. Yeah, that's a boo-boo, but tell you what, they always say it's the thought that counts, and you honestly did mean to offer sincere condolences, so even though you flubbed the word, hopefully the clarification was enough for Ryan, if he didn't already know." Sailor Chibi commented, "You actually freaked up twice. First you said congratulations, and then you said have a good time. Just for the record, that's not what people usually say when someone is dealing with the death of a family member." Our next story is, "Today I effed up and shoved a customer. I'm editing to include paragraphs. I had a relatively slow day at the pizzeria until 1 p.m. when all heck broke loose. It was just me. I got my manager shirt Friday, and a driver. I received 8 orders within 2 minutes of each other and ran out of mushrooms on top of it. After trying to call the customers to see if they would like a substitution, I was getting more behind by the minute. The guests were frustrated but understanding until this 50-year-old Karen stopped in to pick up her order. She was with her teenage daughter and asked where her pizza was. I informed her what the situation was and that I hadn't started her food yet, and received nothing but attitude. She berated me, told me I wasn't working fast enough and anyone else could do a better job. I will admit, I lost it after a few minutes, yelled and told her I would get to it as soon as I can and that I really was doing the best I could. She left, but I saw her sitting out in her car. I felt bad and decided to skip to her meal to get her out as fast as possible. I call my driver to find out that she is, of course, stuck in the snow, so I have no backup. I call the GM and let him know what's going on, pull myself together, and keep going. I'm on the phone with another customer explaining the mushroom situation when I hear, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Of course it's the woman from earlier. Of course her pizza was supposed to have shrooms. I tell her I'll be right with her, and she comes across the desk and hangs the phone up on my call. I was incredulous and will admit I asked what the freak she was doing hanging up my phone on a customer. "I'm a customer," is her response. I told her not anymore, she needs to leave. My boss told me I could refuse service, she needs to go. Of course, she threatens to call corporate, so I give her the GM's cell number and tell her he's on his way there if she wants to wait for him. She starts yelling that she just wants her pizza. I say, no, just leave, you haven't paid for it yet and I'm not serving you. She starts waving her card at me, trying to pay. I keep saying no, so she comes around the counter saying she's going to get her pizza while I'm yelling at her to go. She opens one food warmer and doesn't find it. She then walks further into the kitchen, toward the oven and me. I lost it. I freaked out. I shoved her back. That must have been her final straw because she starts screaming that she isn't just calling corporate, she's calling the cops, while shoving me and putting her fist in the air like she was going to punch me. I was crying and begging her to just leave, which she finally does while she's on the phone with the police. I knew I was going to jail for assault, and I tried to prepare myself for it in the back while I waited for the officer. In the end, the officer said we should just let it go. Tempers flared, no one was hurt, and I didn't go to jail. We canceled her order, and my boss helped me finish my orders and apologize to the rest of the customers. I mean, this lady literally crossed a line. She should not be back in the kitchen. She should not be waving her finger in your face threatening. So it was probably going to come to that eventually, and I think that, everyone's human, right? Everyone has their breaking point. So kind of impulsively shoving her back when she's kind of flown off the handle like that, I don't think is assault by any means, and it sounds like the cops agree, so glad that you got off from that. Hey Blue13 commented, you didn't commit assault. You prevented an unauthorized trespasser from potentially causing damage to your restaurant and or hurting themselves. A customer has no right to be in the kitchen, let alone opening 700-degree ovens. Our next story is, today I effed up by wearing a long shirt to a business lunch. So this happened yesterday, and I'm still debating if I should change my name and flee the country. I had a big business lunch with some executives, important people, big deals, the kind of lunch where you order something light so you don't look like a feral beast devouring a burger in front of people in suits. I played it safe, or so I thought, and got a salad. Well, it turns out that light salad was a Trojan horse of gastrointestinal doom. Midway through discussing quarterly projections, my stomach made a noise so aggressive it could have been mistaken for a distant explosion. I tried to play it cool, but my insides were activating DEFCON 1. I mumbled something about needing to check an email and power walked to the bathroom, barely holding it together. The second I hit the stall, my body betrayed me. It was like opening a shaken-up can of Coke, but instead of soda, it was unholy devastation. And that's when I felt it. A tug on my back. At first, I thought maybe I'd caught my shirt on the stall door, but no. Oh no. I had made a terrible miscalculation. See, in my rush, I didn't realize my dress shirt was way too long, like borderline nightgown long. When I sat down, it had draped neatly into the toilet, directly into the blast zone. I froze. My brain short-circuited. The damage was done. I slowly, horrifically lifted the back of my shirt and confirmed my worst fear. It had caught everything, like a safety net in a trapeze act no one wanted to see. I sat there, staring at the biohazard I just created, and accepted that I would never know peace again. Now, here's the real dilemma. How do you fix this? You can't just waltz back to a table of executives with a shirt soaked in the worst thing imaginable. You also can't walk out of a restaurant shirtless without looking like you just lost a fight in the kitchen. My solution? The sink. I ripped my shirt off like I was about to Hulk out, ran to the sink, and desperately started scrubbing, hoping to make it at least not visibly ruined. But you know what's hard to clean in a restaurant bathroom? Diarrhea out of a dress shirt. And of course, right as I'm aggressively scrubbing, the bathroom door swings open. It's one of the executives. We lock eyes, me standing there shirtless, panicked, dripping in sink water, with a look that can only be described as, I have seen horrors you will never understand. He just slowly backs out and says nothing. I ended up sneaking out the back of the restaurant, texting my boss that I had sudden food poisoning, which wasn't a lie, and Ubering home in shame. I still don't know what happened at that lunch after I left, but I do know one thing. I will never wear a long dress shirt again. And this, gentlemen, is why you always need to wear an undershirt or at the very least a tank top underneath like a long dress shirt. Just a little pro tip there for you. Lickety Split 100 commented, my mom used to buy me shirts that were way too long when I was a kid. I have IBS, and after quite a few ruined shirts, she started making me take my shirt off before I went number 2. Still do to this day. It's a habit at this point. Our next story is, today I effed up by talking about politics with my mom. I, 20 years old, talked to my mother, 44, about politics because voting day draws close. She started the topic and told me to go vote, which I didn't mind. Since I'm not heavy into politics, never was, I asked her about what to vote. Long story short, she started talking about who not to vote and random other stuff like German car industry. For reference, we're both fully German. So then I asked her what I should vote. I had informed myself about it priorly and already knew what I'll vote, but was curious about her views. And that's exactly where I freaked up. She told me to vote the AfD. For everyone that doesn't know, this is the one that gets labeled as the Nazi fraction. Their program is restricting migration, enforcing traditional womanhood, banning abortion/making them less accessible, leaving the European Union, which would affect German savings and stuff, and they want to ban LGBT marriage as far as I know. As an LGBT person myself, that would be real crappy for me, since I do not want to be hunted down at some point. Basically, it really is giving Nazi vibes, and although my mother says they aren't, I can see that it likely won't end well if they end up winning the elections. I thought she was joking at first, so I laughed. She didn't. I asked again who to vote. She didn't change her answer. It really put me off, and I don't know what to think. I'm honestly scared what will happen when they win. I don't want to end inside a concentration camp. I don't want to see my friends end in one as well. I don't want to hide. I don't want to live in fear, and I don't want to leave my country. But I will have to if the same thing happens that happened back then. I'm ashamed of my country, and I don't know if I can face my mother the next few days. I honestly just want to lay down and cry at this point. Edit. Thanks for everyone's input. I'll be trying to talk to my mother during the next few days again. Might take a while to respond to further comments as I'm exhausted with the situation and have decided to do some self-care to get out of my panicky headspace. That sucks. Obviously you don't have to vote AfD, but it sounds like there's a lot more going on in Germany than just that. Very unfortunate situation. Vote how you want, but it sounds like you're probably gonna have to leave. Bionic Feet Girl commented, "You're not wrong about AfD's goals. When our vice president decided to meet with AfD's party leader, all I could think was, no good will come of this. The toxicity of the far right has permeated all over the world. I wish I knew how to fight back, but my country is currently self-destructing." Double Technician 531 commented, "I'm so sorry about your situation. I really don't know how to fight it either, and all I can think of is running once it gets bad. But that's not a solution, unfortunately. I hope things will get better. Stay safe." Our next story is, today I effed up by awkwardly asking out my crush on Valentine's Day. So this happened today, and I'm currently lying in bed cringing at myself. I've been talking to my crush for a while now. We share a lot of common interests, like video games, fantasy media, and all that good stuff. Naturally, I figured Valentine's Day would be the perfect time to finally make a move. After class, we were talking about a book we were both reading, and I was desperately trying to find a good break in the conversation to ask her out. But she was already heading toward her ride, and I was running out of time. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, my brain just went, "Send it," and I blurted out that I liked her and wanted to ask her out. Cue awkward silence. Instead of leaving it at that, which would have been bad enough, I decided to keep talking. I rambled about how I didn't want to pressure her and told her to think about it over the weekend. And then, because my social skills were already in flames, just walked away after wishing her a happy Valentine's Day. She didn't really say much, and now I'm just stuck here replaying the entire thing in my head on a loop, hoping I didn't totally blow it. I just wanted to type this into the void that is Reddit, so thanks for reading my cringiest moment of recent memory, and advice is welcome, but not sure how much it can help now. Look, my friend, it is perfectly normal and natural to get nervous and tongue-tied when you're talking to your crush, never mind working up the courage to ask her out, so I don't think you should feel any shame. What you should not do is continue to overthink it and allow it to just consume your thoughts. What's done is done. You shot your shot, and she'll either think about it, respond, and, you can move forward that way, or you won't. But either way, I think you would have regretted it more if you didn't ask her out in the first place. So no shame in the game. Thrown Away 1811 commented, "Honestly, this was a very respectful way to ask someone out. You didn't F up, you didn't pressure her or put her in an uncomfortable position. You just stated your case and left the ball in her court." Our next story is, Today I effed up by being the reason my close friends broke up. Hello Reddit. If anyone has advice, I would greatly appreciate it. My friend T, 21-year-old male, and his girlfriend A, 22-year-old female, are no longer together. A lot of it is because of me. Here's what happened. A and T were some of the first not-from-home friends I made at college. I met A during Parents' Weekend at a massive football game get-together. We went to a big football school. Game days were a big deal. We hit it off and clicked. Well, the next day, her and I matched on Tinder. A week or so later, her and T got together. During the course of her and T's relationship, over a year, she would always tell me that she met me before she met T. More on that later. T asked me when her and A started becoming a thing if there was anything he needed to know about the Tinder match thing, and I told him the truth. I told him there was nothing between her and I. I truly didn't have feelings for her, she didn't have feelings for me. Fast forward about a year later, and A starts pulling me aside at group hangouts, parties, the bar, etc., and would tell me things I had no right knowing about their relationship. Why they're fighting, what she's thinking, he makes her cry, things like that. T is very involved with the Andrew Tates of the world, so knowing that, I kind of assumed that T was being the bad guy. It also felt like A was coming to me as a damsel in distress type, but she would only bring this up to me after her and I were drunk. And I do have a predisposition towards women, so wrongfully I believed her and never said anything to T. This became a slippery slope. One night, on a weekend while T was out of town, she asked if I wanted to go bar hopping, and I said sure. I like to have a good time, and all the places are heavily trafficked, so I didn't think anything of it. I told her I agreed, and she told me, we can pregame at my place, and you can help pick my outfit. I thought this was weird, but wrongfully, again, I played along. In picking her outfit, she said, and I'm quoting directly, my shorts and jeans are here, my shirts are here, and my trampy tops are here. And then she went back to doing makeup. It was a hot summer evening, so I picked out jean shorts and a normal t-shirt. I did not choose a trampy top. I want to make that clear. Well, we get to the last bar of the trip, and she's being overly flirtatious with me. She told me that she pointed out where her trampy tops were on purpose, hoping I would pick one because T never lets me wear anything like that. She also wanted me to place my hand on her thigh and would kind of grind her butt on me while playing Pong. I asked her, are you sure this is okay? She said, I've known you longer than I've known T. If anything makes me uncomfortable, I'll always tell you first if there's a problem with us. When we left, we went to a mutual's house and he immediately went to bed, which left A and I alone on the living room couch. She practically sat on my lap, and I was really drunk and I kissed her on the cheek. She gave me a sign like I should keep going, so I kissed her neck as well. No clothes were shed and lips never touched. We never really spoke of that night. Fast forward almost 3 to 4 months and her and T are still together. T goes out of town and we go bar hopping again. We get to the last bar of the trip and we sit down on bar stools near the dance floor, and again, she's wanting me to put my hand on her thigh. She also sees guys she knows at a bar that she is not dating and says, I kind of want to go dance with those guys, but I don't know if I should. Will you tell? I shrugged and didn't say anything, and off she goes. After she's done dancing, she's hanging out with that entire group of guys. I'm left alone for over an hour. I message her and say, I came here to have a good time, not to be left alone. I'm going to another bar. I walk to another bar about a mile away. As soon as I get there, T calls me and says, you want to tell me what happened tonight? I said, what do you mean? He says, A said you made her really uncomfortable. I then told him what was going on and the guy she was dancing with and everything. The rest of the night I don't really remember. I think T called me again after 30 to 45 minutes, but I don't remember the content of the conversation. T and I talked again in the morning after, and I told him, I apologize. I kept stuff from you I shouldn't have, and that was wrong. I admit that. It was crappy, but I hope you know the last thing I'm gonna do is lie to you. Apparently A was telling T that she never danced with anyone at the last bar. Her story is I forcefully grabbed her, she fought back against me, and I left the bar. T told me if I could help him prove anything of what we were saying, that would be appreciated. I told him I don't know if anyone can prove what we're saying, I can just tell you what I know happened. A few weeks later, A was back on my Tinder and they were no longer together. P.S. That's a lot more detail I could go into about our conversations when she'd pulled me aside, but I wasn't sure how much space I had. I feel very bad for T. He didn't deserve this from her, or especially me. I feel like I was someone he could trust and respect, and I completely let him down. We've seen each other a few times since all this, and he never makes eye contact or speaks to me, which is more than fair. Ideally, I'd love to make things right and be friends, but I don't think that's possible. Maybe with time, but you've got to give him time and also realize and acknowledge your role in this. It sounds like you've at least started to, but I mean, kissing your friend's, girlfriend and dancing with her, putting your hand on the thigh and all of that, and then withholding that information, keeping it all a secret is pretty, not good friend behavior, shall we say. So give it some time, but yeah, you definitely effed up. Unlock the World commented, "Why are you even posting here? You're a scumbag and a bad friend. You literally started kissing your friend's girl and on her neck, then got salty as freak when she started showing other guys attention that she was supposed to be showing to you? Wait, correction, showing her boyfriend? She's for the streets and you're a horrible friend. How is this a today I effed up? The only one I feel bad for in this situation is your friend, who gets to realize that not only are you a piece of crap, but his girlfriend is an attention-seeking tramp." Our next story is, "Today I effed up by getting a pen cap stuck in my cast, nearly amputating my arm. This was years ago when I was 12, got a cast for a fractured thumb. When it would get itchy, I would stick pens in there, and one day a cap got stuck. Over time, I would get this really sharp, stinging pain on my wrist, but I didn't think much of it since it would go away quick. I would skate a lot and get sweaty so it would smell. When they cut off my cast, it was full of blood inside and the pen cap was digging its way into my wrist. The foul smell was clearly infected, pus everywhere. Doctor said if I waited a day longer that it possibly would have needed to be amputated. I have a cool scar now. We've all done really, really stupid things as kids, shoved things in places where they're not meant to be shoved, if you get my drift. So glad that it was caught before you lost your hand, your finger, whatever was going to happen there. But man, yeah, close call. Hanners commented, "I somehow got a quarter stuck down a cast and had a George Washington head etched into my arm for months as a kid. Man, kids are dumb." Our next story is, "Today I effed up by not running fast enough from an autistic child." Okay, so I work in a mental facility for children with autism. I'm a teacher there and I love working with special needs. The facility is inpatient, so the kids live there, which is hard, but they're there for treatment. Monday afternoon, the higher-ups asked me to stay after to work as a staff on the living units after I was done teaching, for an incentive, of course. I agreed and moved over to Blue Unit after school, which is the teenage girls unit. So this young lady, whom we will call M, lives on this unit and she's about the same height and weight as myself. She suffers from psychosis on top of autism and other issues. She kept asking me to play music on my speaker, the same song over and over. Well, I went on a break from the unit, and when I came back, the other staff, S, said absolutely no music because M was obsessing over the speaker and told S to play my song, bench. One thing we don't do is reward bad behavior, so giving her music at this point was a no-go. She gets agitated and begins trying to flip a table, at which point the other staff, S, gets into a power struggle with M over the table. M runs at S and grabs 2 fists full of hair and starts attacking my coworker. I try to radio to call for backup and it won't transmit. At this point, the whole unit is frantic and we finally lure her out into the hallway. She grabs S by the hair a second time in the unit hall and pulls her down on top of her. I go to help, but I can't leave the kids in the unit alone, so I quickly ask 2 of our girls to hold the door open so I can assist S. As we're trying to get M's hands untangled from S's hair, M goes in for a bite, and I watch staff S practically punch M in the mouth to prevent the bite. I get them separated as the girls on the unit begin to scream that Lil T was having a seizure. Turns out later was a panic attack / attention thing, and S jumps up, runs to the unit door as M is still chasing her. She gets to the door, shoves the angry M away and says, "I gotta help T, deal with her," and slams the unit door in M's face. When I tell you that this bench turned toward me ready to unalive, I started backing away saying, "Hey M, I didn't do crap to you," but she makes a beeline after me. I tried to back away slowly, but she got 2 fistfuls of my hair, practically all of it, and I have thick hair, and starts yanking me by my hair over and over. I grabbed my own hair close to the scalp, and with my still freaked radio, I knew I had to get help somehow without panicking. So while this girl was dragging me one direction, I was dragging her by my hair towards another unit's door for help. I finally made it to the green unit door and banged on it, afterwards collapsing on the floor. Staff came from everywhere to help, and watching the camera footage later, you can see me scoot away from her on my butt after they release her from my hair. First off, I don't get paid enough for this crap. Secondly, I had to take the girls off blue unit because of the med emergency and go to the gym. Tell me why, after they calmed this girl down, they put her back with my unit while I was still in the gym by myself with these girls. She followed me around the entire time, staring menacingly at me. This girl wanted round 2. My coworker, who's her regular teacher, told me just to not show her fear. So anyways, I watched the video a few times at work, and can't record it or share it because HIPAA, and my boss goes on about how this could have been prevented if I had run faster. Okay. It's a tricky situation. At the very least, you should have had some backup, not having to deal with all of that alone. So you're right, you don't get paid enough to deal with that, and if this is going to be an ongoing thing, it might be time to start job searching. Drama Nub commented, I used to work with developmentally disabled adults and children with severe behavior problems. I've seen and had to deal with situations similar to the one you described. First off, it sounds like M has problems with becoming obsessed, and there should be a clear plan created to deal with that behavior when it comes up. Since you don't normally work in the living portions of the facility, I'm guessing you probably don't know what the plans are. They're usually called ISPs, similar to an IEP, but for time outside of school. And there should be very clear protocols when a client is acting out physically. My guess is that's why most of the residents are there, because they have severe behaviors that put others around them at risk. It sounds like you weren't properly trained to be working in that area, and that's the fault of your employer. Sorry you had to go through that. I've been assaulted by my clients a few times. Once I got pinned between my truck door and this woman, who was in a wheelchair. She suddenly grabbed my hair while I was trying to get the footrest off the chair. I pretty much had to wait it out until she got tired of trying to kick me and let go. That was fun. Silly Girl responded, we have safety plans for each student, but I'm more familiar with their IEPs. We use Eucara, which is a pad system to block attacks, but can do physical restraint if only absolutely necessary. There are so many regulations on how to handle the children, as there should be. Our next story is, today I effed up by serving my experimental kombucha at a yoga session and accidentally starting a spiritual cult. I've been brewing kombucha in my garage for the past year after getting into fermentation through my roommate's sourdough obsession. It turned into a genuine hobby and I got pretty good at it. Last month, I got an interesting bag of dried mushrooms at a small Asian grocery store. The owner said they were some kind of traditional medicinal mushroom. He even showed me a package with Chinese characters I couldn't read, but there were pictures of mushrooms that looked kind of bluish. I'd been reading about mushroom coffee and tea trending on TikTok, so I figured I'd try adding some to my kombucha for extra health benefits. I made a test batch by adding the mushrooms to my already brewed kombucha. The first taste test with my roommate went great, kind of earthy with a weird but pleasant tingling sensation on the tongue. Since I had plenty of kombucha, brewing, and a lot of mushrooms, there was enough to share. A few days later, my roommate's girlfriend asked if they could host her yoga session at our place since their usual studio was being renovated. I figured it'd be nice to offer some refreshments, so I put out some fruit in my kombucha. 8 people showed up, and everyone had some before the session. What followed was the most intense yoga session I've ever witnessed. People were crying tears of joy, hugging each other, and saying they could feel everyone's energy. The class never actually ended. It turned into an incredible bonding session that went on for hours. Even the neighbor's cat showed up and just sat in the middle of the group while everyone talked about their deepest feelings and connections to the universe. Now it's become a weekly thing. The original yoga group keeps coming back, and they've brought others. Last Sunday, we had 20 people in the backyard. Someone even brought a drum. The neighbor's cat always shows up and sits in the middle, and everyone's convinced she's some kind of spirit guide. I still can't recreate that original batch. The mushrooms were a one-time find. Kind of relieved about that since things are already pretty intense. I'm curious to know exactly how much of this is actually related to kombucha consumption with the incredible shrooms, of course. It's just that's just a funny story. Alright guys, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give a like and comment down below, and if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. With that all being said, I will see you all next time.